I'm here with Matt Jones. He has been all over the place. Started basketball. Um, you're out of Ohio, correct?
Yeah, Toledo area in Ohio.
Gotcha. And his basketball journey has been going pretty much since then. So, Matt, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm everything's good my way. I appreciate you talking with me.
Yeah, no problem. So, just to start off, just tell me a little bit about yourself and your basketball journey, and just kind of what led you to this point.
I was a high school player, a small college player. When my college career started to wind down, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Thought I would, pursue coaching and go be a graduate assistant. Coach was like, all right, I can kind of try out this coaching thing and get a master's degree. And if I decide coaching is not for me, I have a master's degree out of it and can go join the real world. After being a GA for about 2 weeks, I was pretty much hooked and was, their basketball was all it was ever going to be for me. And since then, coached in college, D2, junior college. I was a prep school head coach in North Carolina. And then I kind of try and transition to the pro side. I've done some scouting stuff. I've coached in Europe. And now doing a lot of player development stuff. It's kind of like my full time thing now.
Gotcha. So you kind of answered this a little bit, but when did you decide that? I mean, you made the move from Ohio to Alabama. How did that process kind of come about? Why it's Mobile, Alabama, correct?
Yep.
So,
Spring Hill High Academic D2 school there. With the GA process, I know there's a lot of young people who are trying to get into basketball, and kind of being a GA is a route a lot of people take. And I spent the whole summer after I finished undergrad searching for a GA spot and working camps and calling people and you name it. And a popular website, Hoop Dirt, that a lot of people get on. I was refreshing that thing every day. It was August, probably middle of August, and a job posting came up. I was the coach who ended up hiring me and was like, yours was the first resume I saw that hit my email. So I looked at it. So it was really just a lot of luck. Got on a couple calls, interviewed, and within a week I was moving down to Mobile, Alabama, sight unseen, never been to the school. I'd never been in the state of Alabama, packed up my car and set off on a real adventure.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a pretty big, I wouldn't say risk, but yeah, not knowing kind of where you're going to be ending up. It's a huge risk, but it's something that you kind of got to do, especially in this industry.
No question. No question.
So when did you kind of decide that basketball was your passion? Was it, I mean, as early as you can remember? Was it kind of something you developed in high school?
I would say probably from about like fourth grade on, like I was just basketball crazy always. It's kind of funny now. I talk to people I grew up with, they're run into people and they're like, well, I'm not really surprised you're working in basketball. They kind of like laugh, like, of course that's what you do type thing. So it's just kind of been part of who I am and what I enjoy for really as long as I can remember.
Gotcha. I think I'm a pretty late bloomer. I'd say it was probably not until like seventh or eighth grade for me. I just fell in love with the NBA and basketball specifically. I was probably more football when I was younger, but just fell in love with the NBA, and now I'm just a huge hoop nerd. So um, I go to University of Wisconsin La Crosse, and I'm a sport management major. Um, I met John at they did a ASU Arizona State did a trade deadline event, so I met John down there, and that was a pretty similar thing. I signed up for it. I had no connection to Arizona, or I didn't know anybody there. I reached out to people around me to see if they'd be interested in doing something like this because you got the chance to meet John and those just NBA front office like personnel to
Yep.
come in and be judges. No one else around here was interested. I said screw it, booked a flight out there. Was randomly assigned teammates to be. I represented the Charlotte Hornets. We were randomly assigned, so I met up with a person on my team and asked if I could crash at his place for the weekend, and it all worked out. But similar kind of story, big risk, and it ended up working out. I got to meet John, and I got this internship. So
Yeah, you got to be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do, and most people aren't willing to spend their own money to fly out places or move across the country or whatever it may be. So that's no, that's a great anecdote.
Yeah. And really the toughest part is convincing, especially my parents, but convincing the people around me that, I mean, it'll be worth it if I go out. And yeah, not being familiar with where I'm going is, it's tough to convince them. Even this internship was like, I'm doing it remotely because John's out in Oregon, but I'm in charge of like marketing and advertising and run and coordinating these interviews and getting that stuff out, to kind of bring in new students. But so this whole interview or this whole internship is, it's remote, and convincing them that this was like a good way to be spending my time is, it was tough to do. But I'm making great connections. I get to meet people like you and people who work in the league and just make great connections. So again, that was something I saw the benefits in, and I wanted to take it on.
No, it's a good decision. You won't regret it.
Yeah. So you started Matt Jones Hoops in 2018, so you're coming up on 6 years. Um, Summer of 2018. Tell me a little bit about what Matt Jones Hoops is, kind of what steps you took to prepare yourself to start your own business and company, and kind of the lessons you've learned along the way.
For me, I gave up coaching kind of in a normal capacity to chase pro basketball. And as you know, pro basketball is really hard, where I was like, this may not happen for me. I need to have something else I'm doing as I pursue pro basketball. And I had a lot of experience in the event space, running camps, events, that type of thing. And then I was going to do player development stuff as a way just to kind of make some money and keep myself afloat. So I went out and got my LLC, and pretty much everything I do basketball wise now kind of encompasses my Matt Jones Hoops brand, I guess. So that does so I do event consulting. I help run some college events, some camps and stuff, and then I do my player development stuff. And then kind of along the way, the last 6 years, I've coached in Europe for 2 seasons. I've done some scouting stuff. I've done some NBA pre-draft work. So it's kind of like an evolving business, I guess would be the best way to say it. And, to like most small businesses, you're just finding ways to stay afloat and finding different income, different ways, sources of revenue and that type of thing. So it's continuing to evolve. But right now, my main focus is I've got one or two kind of big college events I help run in November, December every year. And then my player development business, I work with some high school kids in the Lexington, Kentucky area where I live. I do some video breakdown for some pro guys, and I do NBA pre-draft workouts for a boutique agency. So that's kind of where things stand now.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive for you to be out of the country. You're taking on other coaching responsibilities while, controlling and pretty much maintaining your own LLC business. It can't be easy, right?
It's a hustle. It's a hustle, but it's I tell people all the time though is they kind of like feed into each other. It's kind of almost cyclical. One parts of the event consulting, people I meet there, maybe one guy right now I know through the event space, one of his guys is going to sign with the agency I do pre-draft for, and I was the one who kind of connected him and that type of thing. So it's hard for sure, but it's also they kind of feed off each other, and that makes it a little bit easier.
Gotcha. So, as a young person and kind of breaking into this industry, everyone has to start from somewhere. Whether you were in college or after college, and as you're a coach, or even now, what would you say is the best way for people to make connections or just kind of make themselves stand out? To build those relationships with people in the industries that they want to be in.
Two things. One, like I just tell everybody, part of this is it's just a numbers game. If you knock on more doors than anybody else, more doors are going to open for you. And, some people are like, oh, I'm going to go out to Summer League to meet people. I'm like, okay, great. Like, that's a great starting point. But that's just one door you're knocking on. Like, going to the NBA Combine, going to the PIT, going to the Final Four, going to, whatever it may be, making flights to taking a flight somewhere to go meet with multiple people in a city or whatever it may be. I think that's one thing where it's like I said earlier, like you've got to be willing to do what other people aren't. And most people are willing to go to one or two events. or whatnot and spend their money on it. Most people aren't willing to spend their money and sacrifice what it takes to go to 10 events or whatever it means to meet people, because you may meet a person one time and they may maybe remember you, but then you meet them a second time and a third time and they keep seeing your face out there, and then you gain relevancy and like, well, this person is either really connected or they're really committed, one or the other, and like that sticks out in people's minds. And I would say the other thing, and it sounds kind of corny and hokey, is, and some people, old school people will say it, is like I do handwritten notes still too. Like I'll write. There's a particular person in the NBA who I've been trying to get in contact with to just get some insight on some stuff. I've been writing them a handwritten note every week for the last like 3 months, and I still haven't got a response. But like eventually, I'm gonna see that person. I know I'm gonna see that person, or they're gonna respond, and they're gonna know who I am because I keep getting these stupid letters from me all the time. So I just think like little things like that kind of stick out to people, because most people, we live in a digital age, and emails and texts and all that is what people are used to. So like a note is kind of different.
Yeah, that's something I totally agree with that. I think especially for college students, I'm in my fourth year, senior year. I'm going to be graduating in May. And we do kind of get fed the same advice is make connections and make sure you network with people. And I think a lot of the mindset of a lot of college students is to go out and shake their hand and give them your elevator pitch and then not see them again. And like, great, I made a connection today. But the huge other, that's the tip of the iceberg. The whole rest of it is developing that relationship with that person, being consistent, like you said, and um, you know, even if you're not necessarily rejection, but you've been writing this person letters for 3 months and haven't seen anything yet, but that shouldn't stop you. I totally agree. Yeah, just staying consistent and showing like that's how you're gonna stick out. Like you're absolutely right.
For sure. For sure. I think the other thing I would say, piggybacking off that, is you can meet these people, and for a lot of them, like you may be like a nice kid, but I'm like, they meet nice young people all the time. Like, what are you doing to separate yourself? Any way you can bring value. Like when I was doing some scouting stuff, like I would send emails with like scouting breakdowns from different events I was at and send it to NBA people. And then like now I'm bringing them some sort of value, and they're going to take any info they can get, and now they see I'm serious about it and whatever, and that opens some doors for me. Or if you want to be a college coach, like it's portal season now, and if you worked with an AAU program and there's 3 guys from your AAU program who are in the portal, like coaches are always looking for players now. Now that's something meaningful that
Yeah,
brings.
yeah, and another big piece of that I think is looking at it from the other individual's perspective, and not just one person, how many people come up to them specifically, but even a business or a company or a league, how many applications they're probably getting and resumes and emails and texts. And like you said, it's probably pretty bombarding. And if you don't show that you can give value, they're probably just gonna push it aside and keep going until they find someone who can do that. So um, no, great advice. I think you're absolutely right. So next question, you like I said, you are all over the place. Not only in the U.S. but you've coached in Albania. You just went out to Japan. You're just all over the world. Um, are there any? Tell me about a place that you visited that kind of has an underrated. Um, I don't know if underrated is the right word, but has a good, rich basketball culture that you just weren't expecting.
I knew it was a big deal in Israel, but well, I coached in Israel for a season. That would probably be the one that really sticks out. They're super. They're just like a passionate people in general, but they're super passionate about basketball. And being there, it is like a place where American imports, when they go there, a lot of them want to stay and play in that market for a long time because it is very westernized. The weather's great. The travel is easy. Like this Israel as a country is only the size of like New Jersey, so it's easy to move. Or like the games, there's not a lot of crazy travel or anything like that. But the fans there were great. The coaching was really high level. You get really good import players. The players there get paid well. That would probably be the one where like I knew it was good going into it, but then spending time there, I'm like, oh, this is serious.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of aware of Israel, the basketball culture over in Israel. Um, but yeah, that's very interesting. It just wasn't the country I was expecting. Um, it's probably a terrible like bounce out question, but do you have any stories of any other places that you visited basketball wise?
Albania was interesting for sure. Kind of like a developing country. I was there the kind of the I was 2021 season basically. So right when COVID was still a thing. So like the G League only half that they did the G League bubble and only half the teams played. A lot of other leagues in Europe were, smaller budgets or didn't play or whatever. So that Albania is like a lower level league, a lot of like first year players, but I get the head coaching job there, and you'd be amazed at the type of players people were pushing at me because there are a lot of guys without jobs who just wanted to play. So I was getting like former McDonald's All Americans, crazy people coming across, like guys with NBA experience who just wanted to hoop. So that was kind of a unique year experience. I got some really good players, and there were some really good players playing in that league. So that was kind of interesting. I just came back from Japan like 3 days ago. That was an interesting experience in terms of basketball is growing there a lot. And as a culture, the fans there, like it's more of like a reserved, respectful type culture. The fans there, like they don't really stand up during games. They clap, but they don't like yell and boo a whole lot. So it's kind of weird to go to these games where there's probably 5, 6,000 people in a couple of these arenas, and like all there was like clapping, no standing up, no booing. Like didn't definitely don't yell at the referees ever. So it's kind of different than compared to what you're used to here.
Yeah, I kind of I I wish the yelling at referees would probably get toned down here maybe a little bit. That's a
The heart
it's pretty annoying
for
American
sure.
culture, I think. Yeah, no, great stories. Are you able to speak on any players that you've worked with, even the draft stuff or um, whoever you might have coached?
Right now, the two guys I'm like real proud of is Dexter Dennis, played at Texas A&M. He was on a two-way with Dallas this year, played some NBA minutes, scored 18 in an NBA game. Then he got moved. He's playing it for the Cavs G League team right now, but he's the guy I spent a lot of time with in the pre-draft process. And then the other one, Trey Jemison is the kid's name. He's playing for the Memphis Grizzlies right now. Obviously, the Grizzlies have had a crazy amount of injuries this year. He signed a two-way probably about 6 weeks ago and has been playing, starting some games. He started a game tonight actually, and so he's a guy that averaged like 9 points and 8 rebounds at UAB, and he's starting in the NBA. So it's kind of a tale of just fit, and finding he's got a role and he fits a role they needed, and he's continued to develop. So I'd say those are the two like current guys, but with my relationship with Adidas, like when they were high school players, I was in the gym with Emmanuel Quickly, Zion Williamson, Quentin Grimes, like was able to be like a lot of these young, good NBA players, be around them when they were, 17, 18 years old, which was, a really great experience for me. And great, kind of cool to see where they're at now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely it's tough. I consider myself a hoop head, but it's I have conversations with um either G League coaches or GMs or people who work with, yeah, they're trying to get their players like 10-day contracts. And I really don't know a lot of those players. The two you mentioned earlier previously, yes, I recognize them. So that's awesome. You got to work with them, and then obviously the guys with Adidas. That's huge as well. Is there a player that you have worked out with that has kind of exceeded your expectations or started out a little bit shaky and then it's just blossomed into something you just didn't imagine?
There was a player I worked with last summer. He played at a mid major. I'm not gonna get too specific in names on this one, but played at a mid major. Big kid, probably like 6'11", maybe averaged like 5 points a game for his career. Wasn't sure he wanted to pursue pro basketball, but there are people in his ear being like, you're kind of a late bloomer, all these things. Like, you should give it a shot. Plus, he's 6'11, runs well. Like, there's a spot in Europe for guys like that. And he and I spent a lot of time together last summer and just blossomed. Like, he had never worked on a jump shot in his life. Like, we were doing like mechanics with his shooting and stuff. Then he was like, oh, I never even knew that, because all I've ever done is like been taught to shoot like jump hooks and dunk. And now he's playing like entry league level league in Europe, but like a respectable one. And he's averaging like 17 and 8 this year. And he's gonna go, he's probably making $3,000 a month right now, which is not a bad starting point. And he's gonna probably triple that going into next year. He's gonna be a 6-figure player. So I'm like super proud of this particular player, and he's kind of a private guy, so I'm just gonna keep the name to myself. But just like a cool story, and kind of like I said before, it's just about fit, like how they used him where he played and how he is as a pro player are two different things. And it just goes to show how important fit is, and going somewhere where how you're going to be used, and how that can kind of impact the trajectory of your career.
Absolutely. So just kind of wrapping up here. I want to save this question towards the end. I've had two previous interviews before you, and I'm gonna have plenty more. But my goal with this question is I want to kind of compile them together and get everyone's answer, because I think it's gonna be different. And I think it'll be a cool thing to kind of collage together. It's inspired by John Wooden, the UCLA coach. We in one of my undergraduate classes, we watched a video of him when he was 93 years old. He gave a speech about his definition of success. Um, and it stuck with me since. It's a question I think about a lot, and I think it is a different answer from everyone. So I want to know what your definition of success is.
Success to me is being thorough and well rounded in your pursuit, to the point where whether you get the end goal you're wanting or not, you can look back in the short term and the long term and say, I did everything I could. I was thorough. I checked as many boxes as I could. I gave my best effort, and the result is the result. So to me, that's success to me, because especially being in this industry, is you have to celebrate the small wins. And we all want to be in the NBA, we all want to be all these things, but the honest truth is, a lot of us, it's not going to happen for, and we are going to end up on different paths. And that doesn't mean, if you asked me 10 years ago, I would be coaching the NBA right now. I'm probably never going to coach the NBA, and that's okay with me, because I still do feel successful, because I have tried everything I can think of and tried to exhaust all options, and it just doesn't happen for me. It wasn't part of God's plan for me. So that would be my definition of success, is giving it your best, and you know being able to look inside yourself and say, like, hey, I did give my best. I tried everything I could. I was thorough. I checked all the boxes. Just didn't happen for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I think my definition is pretty similar to that. I think if you give it your all, I mean, live up to your potential and give all, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but give your full
No,
potential, and yeah, like give it your all, like you said. That's absolutely success to me. Some things just aren't meant to be, and learning how to deal with that is a whole nother beast. But yeah, acceptance, and kind of the position you're in, and just continuing to pursue, I think, is a huge part of it.
yeah. Success isn't an all or nothing thing. It's not either you either succeed or you fail. Like, there's multiple ways you can succeed.
Oh yeah, and understanding, yeah, there's just so many layers, especially in sports, in the industry of sports. There's so many layers. I think a lot of people want to focus at the very top, or prioritize one league over another, or one place over another. And you're a great person to talk to about this, because you've gone to a ton of different places, and joined different leagues and different organizations, and now you have your own business. I mean, you just finding where you're comfortable in, because, and then I've heard this too, the place that you um, people want to be in sometimes isn't where they're the most happy, especially in sports. I hear that a ton. Um, so yeah, I think for me, I would say success is, yeah, finding a place where you're comfortable in, and yeah, and everything else you said. Great answer. Um, if you had to give some advice to your 22-year-old self or college students, um, trying to get into sports and going along a similar career path that you did, what would it be?
Going back to what I said before, you just have to be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. Putting yourself out there and kind of, like what we were saying before is not everyone's going to understand it. Your family may not understand it. Your girlfriend may not understand it. Your friends may not understand it. And being comfortable enough in your own skin to like look past all that and be like, you know what, I'm going to keep on keeping on. And, I don't care if people think what I'm doing is kind of crazy or outside of the box or whatever. And, everyone wants to work in sports. Who wouldn't want to work in sports, and I know I've got plenty of friends who, are like, man, I kind of wish I pursued that. But with that, with so many people wanting to pursue it, it's just cutthroat. It's not fair. It's not a lot of things. And so, you've got to just be willing to, I tell all sorts of different stories of just the crazy stuff I've done. And, just because and really all it boils down to is I don't think most people would do that. So I did it. And, a lot of those things I did, I think are what's opened up doors for me.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So that's pretty much the advice bulk of the interview. I wanted to throw some fun stuff at the end. Um, what is your NBA team? You're like fan of?
I don't really have a team, to be honest. Didn't really grow up. Like, I'm from Ohio. I was never a Cavs fan or anything like that. I've always just been a guy, unfortunately, because I don't, these people drive me nuts in all sports, but I just kind of like certain players and just follow the teams of the players I like. So I'm a huge Damian Lillard guy. My Adidas affiliation, kind of his underdog story, and then just how he plays. So I've always just kind of followed him. Would be one of the guys that I get excited about.
That's awesome. I'm a huge Bucks guy, so I'm on the same train as you know. Um, yeah, just wanted to do some NBA talk. You're like informed about the league. I'm assuming. I mean, you still like watch the league
Yeah,
and pay attention.
yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. Um, okay, 10 minutes left. Uh,
Hold on, let me turn on my car.
so just one of the last few questions I wanted to ask. Who would you say is one of the more underrated players in the NBA or in the league, in your opinion?
Underrated. Right now, the Jalen Williams for the Thunder, Jalen Williams. I would say probably him. I think he's a really all around, like analytically, what he brings intangible wise. Like I just love what he brings. It's just he plays with what feels like nine other really good young guys. So it's kind of easy to for him to get lost in the shuffle. But that would be the first one that would come off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was paying pretty close attention to that draft when that was coming out. And which year was that? That was the Paulo Chet. That was last year, right? Yeah, because he was
Yeah,
rookie of the year race last year. And I was paying attention to that draft and mock drafts leading up to the draft, and he was like early second round for a while, and then leading up when he was getting his pre-draft stuff getting done and more workouts, he just kept climbing up into the 20s. Now he's lottery. He went freaking eighth, I think, in that draft, and
crazy.
he just shot up. And I don't know who ever found him after Santa Clara, but the season had ended and he was, yeah, like second round. So
Yeah,
it was all that NBA prep and workouts and stuff that just brought him all the way up into the top 10 pick. Is insane. And of course it paid off. Yeah, he rookie of the year race last year, and he's a huge part of their team this year, of course.